Take my hand. I'll lead you into death. By a whisper in the shadows on AO3. Episode 34. Chapter 19. I'm so fucking sorry, Izuku. Izuku's eyes widen at Katsuki's choked voice. He tried to reassure that it was okay, but Katsuki plunged ahead. I'm so fucking sorry I turned my back on you. I'm sorry I was so horrible that I couldn't... Shit. That I wouldn't help you when the others hurt you. I was egotistical as hell. Just the biggest fucking brat. Kami. I suck at this. But shit. You need to understand how wrong I was, Izuku. You were more of a hero than I could ever be. You still are. Katsuki hated how much he let his emotions overwhelm him in that moment. He wept furiously at his tears, only stopping when gentle hands replaced his own, brushing over his cheeks. Katsuki chanced looking at Izuku in the eye, nearly losing it again at how sincere Izuku looked. His eyes shone with such adoration, such determination. Katsuki felt like he was being transported back in time. He felt like he was looking at that 7-year-old Izuku. Strong, brave, loving Izuku. Katsuki cleared his throat, sick of dealing with his own emotions that day. So, the rest of your memories? Izuku drifted away momentarily, eyes on focus. Like I said, it's complicated. Before there were images and feelings. None that really worked together, and it was so frustrating. Now these feelings make sense, or at least more sense. Like why I felt safe when I thought of All Might and my mom. They always brought warmth to my chest. Happiness. He glanced up at Katsuki. Same for you. But with you there was always more. I always felt like I was missing something internal with our relationship. I guess I figured out what that was. He frowned, looking contemplative. I don't really understand why Deku triggered that kind of response, but even with these new memories, they're not actually new. They've been there the whole time, just, buried, I guess? Izuku sighed heavily, leaning more on Katsuki. His eyes fluttered before they drifted close. There are still lots of gaps. Lots of gaps. But I think I'm starting to feel whole again. Katsuki stared at Izuku, as his breath evens out, and he floated off to sleep. Carefully, he lifted Izuku into his bed, and after a brief contemplation, curled up next to him. He squeezed the All Might plushie in between them, and stared at the sleeping boy. He counted his deepest breaths, moved closer to hear his heartbeat. Izuku was alive, and well. There was still so much missing, so much that was taken from him. But in that moment, he was okay. In that moment, he was safe. In that moment, Katsuki could relish in knowing Izuku was with him. In breathing with him. Katsuki soon followed the younger boy into a slip, a smile playing on his lips. Izuku hadn't rambled like that since they were kids. An hour later, the two were awoken by their own hunger, stomachs rumbling. Izuku still jumped whenever it happened. Kacchan laughed at him every time. He didn't think he could ever get used to the feeling of being hungry. Kacchan had put on a jumper Aizawa had given Izuku when he was in the hospital first. Izuku liked that jumper a lot. He liked it because it was completely his. He liked letting Kacchan wear it. It looked better on him. Fit better. It was still Izuku's, though. Laughter floated down the hall as they approached the common area. Aizawa said they still should all be informed from the meeting that night, including Izuku's punishment. He was nervous for their answers, but the laughter eased him a little. UA wasn't strict on following their own rules. Technically, Izuku wasn't allowed anywhere without a hero escort. Kacchan argued that he had his provisional license, so that was technically counted as doing hero work. Izuku thought Aizawa was going to try to argue. He wondered how the commission would control everything from then on. Large groups still freaked him out a little, especially when he couldn't watch everyone at once. He fiddled with his nano cuff, letting it move around his wrists, colliding like a snake. Kacchan had tossed it to him just before they left, saying Hatsume thought Izuku would have liked it back. Another rule that was technically broken. Izuku grew comfortable with Class A. He still didn't completely trust them, but he'd gotten a lot better than that first day. He wasn't sure how they felt about him, but he thought about the relationship and how it improved somewhat. He just hoped they weren't scared of him anymore. That they wanted him to stay as much as he wanted to. It was a long shot, but he still hoped. Izuku's steps faltered, the voluptuous activity getting louder. Katsuki put a hand on his back, urging him forward. The room didn't notice them entering, all caught up in their own conversation. Izuku was pleased to see it was only Class A and Eri. He presumed Aizawa and Yamada were somewhere around as well, which was okay. He wasn't sure when he was ready to deal with more that night. Any peace was ripped from Izuku when his eyes landed on Eri. His smile wiped clean off his face, his focus on her hands. Or more importantly, what she held. Where'd you get that? He hadn't even realized he had crossed the room, standing just a little away from her. She looked up at him, her own smile dropping as their eyes met. Izuku? She whispered. Where'd you get that, Eri? He repeated, stepping closer. A hand caught Izuku's wrist. He snatched it away and turned, going on high alert. Kachan's eyes were wide and questioning, mouth glittering as his words caught. Kirishima stepped up behind Kachan. Whoa, bro, easy. What's happening? Kirishima asked, his playful smile intact, even though his eyes were hard. Izuku ignored them, turning back to Eri. He moved to take the card away from her, but was pushed back. Hitoshi had appeared out of nowhere in front of him. What are you doing? Hitoshi snapped. It's just a card. What's gotten into you? He asked, eyes cold like the day Izuku first met him. It's not just a card. Izuku snapped back, moving to take it again. Hitoshi shoved him harder, so he stumbled into Kirishima. Izuku glowered lowerly. Katsuki moved to shove Hitoshi back, but now they had everyone's attention. What's going on here? Aizawa's voice carried across the room as he stared at the scene. Izuku's going feral over some fucking collector card. Hitoshi barked. Kachan continued to glare at him as he glared at Izuku. It's not just a card, Kachan said. Hitoshi scoffed. Of course you would say that. You'd say anything Izuku would, following him around like a lost fucking puppy. Hitoshi. Hey, let's calm down. Fuck you. I'm saying it's not just a card, 'cause it's not just a fucking card. Kachan yelled back in Hitoshi's face. That's a Bronze Age All Might card with a golden border and All Might signature. It's one of the rarest in the world, only 20 being found, and by the same fucking lucky draw, Izuku and I both found when we were 5. We carried them around everywhere. They don't even sell them anymore. Izuku was done listening, reaching to grab the card again. Just before he could, a wife's scarf shut out, moving away from Eri. Izuku stared wide-eyed at Aizawa, who instantly dropped the scarf. Izuku took a step forward. Aizawa stared at him, equally shocked. Big deal! Is the card really worth all this? Look at Eri, you're scaring her. Izuku let his eyes drift to Eri, who watched him back, her own eyes filled with tears. Izuku stepped further away from her. He looked at the card she had gripping in her hands. The card that had written scribbled across the back of it. Bunny. Papa calls me Bunny. Izuku wasn't sure how loud he said it, nor how many people heard him. His focus was no longer in the room. The hairs on his arms stood up. A chill moved up his spine. His ears rang. His mouth went dry. A black portal opened up behind Eri. Her screams was all Izuku could hear. He pounced after her. The room's shouts echoed behind him, as the world was clouded in darkness. It was only a couple of seconds, and then Izuku could see again. Immediately he moved Eri into his arms, whispering apologies, while she gripped his shoulders. The nanocuffs flew off Izuku's wrist and around Eri's, canceling her quirk. Izuku tried to get it off her, but it wouldn't listen. Don't you remember, Bunny? A cold voice echoed from the shadows. I am always the one in control. Izuku blocked Eri from the direction of the voice, watching as Papa stepped out of the darkness. There was more people behind him that Izuku couldn't see. But it didn't matter. Papa had Izuku's full attention. Izuku averted his eyes to Papa's feet. He glanced around the room, breath catching as he recognized where he was. He'd only been there a couple of times, but judging from the jail cells that surrounded its perimeter, Izuku was in the basement. Welcome home, Bunny. I've missed you. Izuku's heart clenched at those words. Not my home. He mumbled. Not your bunny. The room suddenly felt much colder. Is that really how you talk to me, bunny? Izuku wasn't sure what had happened. 1 second, Eri was gripping his shirt from behind. The next, she sat across the room in Papa's arms. Eri! She screamed in his arms, kicking wildly, crying out to Izuku. Papa held his hands up when Izuku moved forward. He froze. Shh. It's okay, darling. Don't panic. I'm not gonna hurt you. He turned his face to Izuku. Izuku's heart clenched at the tears running down her cheeks. I see you've made friends with my bunny. Bunny really cares about you, little one. He could save you. All he has to do is come back to me. Say he's mine. If he does that, I won't hurt you. If not... He tilted her head to look into his eyes. Eri whimpered in pain. What I'll do next will be much worse than a small headache. Izuku wanted nothing more than to never go back to Papa. Still, he knew where he truly belonged. Okay. Papa and Eri looked at him. Okay, I'm yours, Papa. I know I am. Please, let her go. Don't hurt her. I'm back. Izuku gulped. Take me home, Papa. Papa smiled widely, eyes flashing. He threw Eri back toward Izuku. Kirigiri. Eri vanished. Izuku tensed as Papa approached him. He shivered when cold hands stroked his cheek, brushing through his hair. Papa gritted the back of his neck, forcing him to look up. Green met red. Red pulled into black. Izuku writhed on the floor, body on fire. He felt himself being dragged to his feet, but he could no longer process much else. People were moving around him as Izuku blinked his vision back to focus. Maybe he was moving? He couldn't tell. His rear's Papa stepped into his line of sight, suddenly clear. You've been very bold, bunny. And we know bold bunnies don't go unpunished. Papa stroked Izuku's face. Honestly, you didn't really think you'd get away with it, bunny. He gripped Izuku's cheeks, nails digging into his skin. You're mine. The room filled with yelling, portals open in the cell, dropping people down. Izuku let out a pained whimper when he saw their faces. His people, his family, Eri. He said he'd let go of her. Have fun, Shigaraki. Papa said. Someone was dragging Izuku away. Someone was calling his name. Green met red. The good red. Kachan's red. Kachan was there. No, Kachan couldn't be there. Kachan shouldn't be there. Izuku screamed. Okay, I was gonna say about the fact that, I could sort of kind of see Izuku starting to develop feelings too. Not obviously, like, start to develop feelings, because this is not a ship, fic. But I could see where Izuku could start developing feelings, right? As someone who likes romance. Anyways, I was like, oh, this is a moment where, like, Izuku's saying something really sussy. Like, this is giving gay. Homosexual gay. And then I saw Eri holding the card. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna cry today, aren't I? Or I didn't see, but I saw because I saw the words. Like, you get what I mean? I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna sob tonight. Gonna cry myself to sleep? Thank you. Thank you so fucking much, bitch. Thank you. So the next one is the first words are Hitoshi was on edge. So yeah, I think we're all on edge, Hitoshi. It's not just you. It's everybody. I'm in hell. I'm in hell. I'm in pain. That's where I am. Okay. Nothing more. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content. And thank you so much for watching.